good or bad, is a learning point for all of us. Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do something. There is no substitute for doing hard work. Everything is given to us by somebody else. But ultimately, we have to stand up and figure out what exactly is that I want to do. Follow your passion and learn from the older generation of the mistakes that they have committed. They're trying to tell you. Always consider that what you have is more privileged than what many other people do not have. What can I do not to let people around me let them down? He said, our mind is like an umbrella. It works only when it is open. The concept that exists in a newspaper can be applied to any part of your career. Not every flower blooms at the same time during spring. Keep looking for opportunities to not give up hope of making a difference in this world.
Hi everyone, this is Disha Dioxide and you are watching CEO Secrets, what made them successful and how we can make it. Today I am here with Bhaskar Kalale, who is the chairman of EqualizeRCM, a Mysore-based healthcare KPO company. We will talk about his journey and his experiences. Welcome to the show, sir, and good to have you with us.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Were you a brilliant student, sir, or were you a backbencher? And when did your turning point towards your success happen?
So I was definitely not a brilliant student. I was probably more of a backbencher than anything else. But those were, I think, early days of my schooling. And then later on, I picked up, I think my turning point was probably somewhere around the 8th grade. Where I felt that I needed to do something better with my life. And then of course there are many turning points as you go along. My 8th grade was one, and then in those days I did 11th. There were 11 years of schooling and not 12 years as it is today. And 11th was another turning point. And then I think the turning point kept happening where I learned a lot more about myself, about what I wanted to do. Not only from my parents, of course, but also from my friends, my peers, and so on. So there have been different turning points. There was no one such turning point that I can say that signifies as the turning point.
Okay, that's wonderful. It's quite a unique answer because everybody says my turning point was when I grew up and I realized. So in school itself, it's kind of different.
It is different because, Disha, to be honest with you, I think turning point in an individual's life happens not only from the educational perspective, but also personal experiences, right? So when you go through different experiences in life, and most of the experience in life is not something that you're prepared for. There is nothing that can prepare you for those. And when life throws, as they say, when life throws curveballs at you, you just have to grow up and then work with it. I think each one of those points that we encounter, good or bad, is a learning point for all of us and probably a turning point.
Wonderful, sir. How would you suggest that an average student can become a CEO?
I think you have to keep trying, right? So you have to keep trying, have faith in yourself. I think that is the biggest thing, right? Don't let anybody tell you that you cannot do something. If you believe in yourself, and most importantly, belief comes from self-confidence, and the self-confidence comes from you being able to constantly learn newer things in life. When you're constantly learning, it doesn't matter what you're learning. It could be something that you're very passionate about. It doesn't have to be related to your career. It could be a classical music. It could be some adventure sport. It could be anything. But as long as you're keeping yourself engaged in trying to learn a new skill, I think that goes a long way in building that self-confidence. And once you have the self-confidence, a self-belief starts to build up. And once that happens, I think sky is the limit.
Wow, wonderful, sir. That's very inspirational, I might even add.
So thank you.
What's the best advice that someone gave you, sir?
I think, again, different stages of life, I've got different advices from people. But one of the best things that I've gotten is two, maybe. One is there is no substitute for doing hard work. Right? So there is nothing that can substitute no matter how much money you have, no matter how much support you have from people, ultimately you are the one who has to put in the effort to make something happen out of it. The opportunities come to you, but you have to be ready to take on those opportunities or convert those opportunities to something that is meaningful to you. Right? So that is one. And the second one, I think, is keep learning. Right? I think keep developing your skill set. And this is an example that I give to all the people, all the students who would like to listen. When I started my career, computers were much bigger than this room, for example. Right? So there were mainframe computers. And in India, mainframe computers were very, very difficult to even find. Forget about the desktops and the laptops. But now, over the years, we have all transformed, and just not me, many people or most people from my generation have started from that level of computerization, so as to speak, and to be able to manage very large, highly technical work or teams or companies. That has happened only because we have constantly kept abreast with the technology, made an attempt to learn. Right? So unless we make an attempt to learn, you are going to be, nobody very, very soon. Right? And I keep this again, I give you this example that in my career of 30 years, the technology has changed about 5 or 6 times. That means on an average, technology changes every 5 to 6 years. So what I'm doing today is not going to be relevant 5 to 6 years from now.
You have to keep learning again.
You have to keep learning, and it's the same thing for the students. People think that, okay, I've done computer science engineering, or I've done MBA or BBA or whatever, then it is enough for the next 35 years of my career. It is not.
It is not.
Right? Because when you look at somebody, let's say 22, 23-year-old student, he or she has next 30 years, 35 years of career ahead. And if they are thinking that what they have learned today is going to be sufficient for the next 35 years, that is absolutely not true. Right? As I said, when I say technology, it is not just the IT, just the environment, the ecosystem, the economics of doing things, the way the companies behave, the businesses itself change every 5 to 6 years. Few years ago, Swiggy's and Zomato's didn't exist.
True.
Right? Ola didn't exist. Right? All those are significant tectonic changes in the business environment that people have to be ready to take it in its stride, look for opportunities and make something out of it.
Wonderful, sir. If you could go back in time and meet your younger self before all of this, what would you tell him, sir?
I don't know if I would tell him something different, but I think I would definitely have liked to have more information on my fingertips the way it is available today. So that's why I feel very, in a positive way, jealous of younger generation today, because for them the information is literally on their fingertips, in their palms.
That is true.
Right? There are smartphones that can give you the world of information that you are looking for, and we didn't have that. We had to wait for days together for information to arrive. Even the newspaper would be at least a 1 day late. Right? So that's how primitive, I should say, the communication was in those days. Right? And but I think today the information is out there. You of course have to figure out what is good and what is bad, and sift those things out and capture and gather the ones that are good for you. And I think you can make a world of difference to yourself if you just keep yourself learning.
What is this mistake that you see students making today which will affect their careers in the future, sir?
I would keep going back to the same thing, Disha, which is not willing to learn. Right? So one thing I say, to the students is, I said, look at the acronym LOL. Right? So which everybody knows in social media what LOL stand for. To me, being of an older generation, when I look back, to me, LOL acronym actually stands for lifetime of learning. That's how I look at it.
Wow.
Right? Because no matter how young or old you are, you have to constantly learn or make an attempt to learn. Right? I think my concern is people take things for granted, or students take things for granted. If you think of the fact that everything a person has today, whether it's you, me, younger generation, everything is given to us by somebody else. right? Our parents have given birth to us. Our name is given to us by our parents. Our schooling is decided by our parents. What we should study is decided by our parents. But ultimately, we have to stand up and figure out what exactly is that I want to do. Right? So now we have. So that is where I think people or younger generation. I think it probably existed in our generation as well. Not that everybody knows everything to be done, but I think it would be nice for the younger generation to learn from the older generation what they are telling them, to say, look, follow your passion and learn from the older generation of the mistakes that they have committed. They're trying to tell you that don't do this or do this. Right? So I think they have to keep learning. And one other thing I think, which is probably the biggest difference between the younger generation and our generation, Disha, is in our generation, we used to regularly read newspapers. Right? Because that was the only source of information for us. So we got used to it. Right? Today generation, I don't see them reading newspaper. And why do I say it is very important for people to read newspaper? For multiple things, because the concept that exists in a newspaper can be applied to any part of your career. And I'll just give you one or two examples if you have enough time. One is, how do you present a story in a way that is very appealing to the reader? Right? And that is your communication. And in business, there is nothing better than being able to communicate properly. Your thoughts and your, whatever you want to communicate. If you look at a newspaper, if you like the headlines, you are going to read the details. If you don't like the headlines, you don't read the details. Right? How do you convert, or how do you write those headlines that makes it very interesting for people, for you to capture the imagination of the person or the attention of the person, so that they actually read the article? Where do I use it? I use it very effectively when doing PowerPoint presentations. My headlines of my PowerPoint presentation is never just saying agenda, for example, or whatever. It would be something like, what are we going to discuss today? So it's a little more descriptive. It tells the user what is in the rest of the slides that is coming along. Right? And it is obviously, there's a lot of information that is out there in the newspaper, right from political news to sports news to financial, economics, etc., etc. You pick and choose what interests you. Right? I think that is one big difference from what I see from when we were growing up, and then I think what I see in today's generation.
Was your path to success easy, sir? Was it hard work, luck, or was it a balance of both?
It's a balance of both. Hard work definitely cannot be substituted. It cannot be counted out at all. If you are riding your luck, you are going to be riding your luck only for a brief period of time. Hard work is something that is out there to stay with you for the longer period of time. Right? So luck, I mean, I don't know really what it really means, because different people will probably have a different luck. But what I really think of luck being is you being ready to take care of the opportunities, or take the opportunities when it is presented to you. Right? And I think some people have innate ability to recognize those opportunities and jump on it. And some people do not have that ability for whatever reason. Right? So it could be, you can call it as God-given gift. You can call it as their street smartness, or whatever it might be. But I feel that the opportunity, when it presents itself and you are able to grab that opportunity with both your hands, people will probably say that, look, that guy got lucky. Right? So the opportunity came to him. But what they forget is, the opportunity might have come, but you have to be able to recognize it and then grab it.
Yes.
Right? So to be able to recognize when an opportunity is presented itself requires you to be very informed about a variety of things that is happening around you. Right? So one other example I can give is, why some of these startups are so successful, and many startups fail. And that is because, the founders, they are able to recognize the opportunity, and they are able to recognize the opportunity because they are very aware of the environment in which they live. They're very aware of the problems, whether it could be social problem or it could be a business problem that exists, and they're looking for a solution. You will not find any entrepreneur or any businessman who has a solution looking for a problem. You always have a problem, then you try to find a solution. Right? So if you have a solution and looking for a problem, then it is like looking for something in a haystack that may not happen.
True.
Right? So I think being ready to grab those opportunities is very, very critical. So I would say it's more of hard work, being aware of your environment, talking to people, learning from their experiences, whoever it might be. It could be your junior, it could be your peer, it could be your seniors, etc. And then working through it. Now, not everybody will have the same cycle of life, you know. So some people may go ahead of me at the same stage. Some people would be behind me. But ultimately, everybody will figure out a way to lead their life comfortably as they want, right? So I would say students should never worry about saying, "Hey, he got a package of 10 lakhs and I got only 8 lakhs package," for example, right? Maybe he will plateau out after 12 lakhs, and you will probably keep going up, right? And another example I would give, or analogy I would give, is not every flower blooms at the same time during spring.
True, that is true.
Right? So that means every flower has its own life cycle, and all of us have our own life cycle. Some people will attain success very early in life and they'll probably plateau out, and some people will attain success later on in their life and they'll probably stay there. Right? So I would say it's a long story, but to answer your question, I think it's a combination of both. But again, with emphasis on hard work.
Emphasis on hard work. Yeah. Wonderful, sir. Did you ever feel like giving up? Because like you said, life cycle is pretty long to be consistent and come to this far. Did you ever feel like giving up, and what kept you going when you did so?
Never thought of giving up, because one big question was, if I give up, do what? Right? So there has to be an alternative, right? And I never thought of giving up. It's easy to give up. It's easy to, when you are beaten down, it's very easy to stay there, right? I think it's the real character of a person shows up when you're able to get up and again. Then start walking again. And you don't have to start running from the moment you get up. You know, start crawling and then walking and then running, right? And how many times can the life beat you down? Only so many times, right? So ultimately, life also, you have to get to the point where life has to say, "Boss, I'm done with you.
I give up.
I give up. You continue." Yeah, so never give up. You know, giving up is very, very easy. There are lots of challenges. As I said, it's going to be personal challenges. There are going to be professional challenges that people will go through, and particularly when people are, let's say, on the family way. You know, they get married, they have kids, etc., etc. It becomes very challenging, and more so for women than it is for men. Right. So as I said, giving up is very easy. My particular encouragement to all the female students is, keep looking for opportunities to not give up hope of making a difference in this world, making a difference for yourself. Right? It's very easy otherwise in an environment like we have in India, where you're always beaten down. Right? But you have to stand up for what you believe in and keep fighting. So it doesn't mean you go and fight with your parents and in-laws and everybody, but what I mean is you have to believe that you can make a difference. You are capable of much better things than what you have been made to believe.
Wonderful, sir. What was your biggest obstacle in your career path, and how did you overcome it?
I don't know if there are biggest obstacles per se. There are obstacles. See, Disha, there are always obstacles that are thrown your way, right? Sometimes, as I said, life throws it at you. Sometimes it is people around you who happen to be having a totally different agenda. You just have to navigate. So I don't believe there was any one particular obstacle that was big. One thing, however, I can tell you, one biggest obstacle for me in early days of my growing up was ability to communicate in English. Was my biggest obstacle. And what had happened was my father was working in a very, very remote area in Madhya Pradesh, and we were so I had my primary education in a very remote area, and literally in an Adivasi school, where we would sit on the floor and learn. And when we were I was in 6th grade, my father decided to take a transfer to a bigger city. And then when I came to 8th grade, my father said, okay, and all was Hindi medium. right? So I did not know anything else. And when I came to the 8th grade, my father decided to put me in an English medium school, and I did not know even the English alphabets. Forget about being able to form sentences or words. That, I think, was a very, very big challenge for me, right? So because being thrown into a larger city environment, moved from a totally Hindi medium school to a totally English medium school. And I say that, I knew answers to only 2 questions. If my teacher were to ask, what's your name and which school you have come from? If they interchange the order of the questions, then I would be host, because it was purely rote learning. Right? But from that point onwards, to be able to learn the English language was a struggle, right? But that was something, somehow, I don't know how, it came to me that I have to be good at what I'm trying to do, which is to learn English, because that I figured that was my weakest link in whatever I wanted to do. So I think that was probably the biggest obstacle. And there were some personal challenges along the way with the death of my father at a very early age, and so on and so forth. But you just have to get up and keep running. So.
Wonderful, sir. What are 3 things or 3 unique skills that are unique to you that made you successful, sir?
That's a good question. One thing I would say that quest for knowledge. Okay, so I'm constantly reading something or the other. I'm constantly trying to gather more information about about anything and everything. It is just not any specific thing about a business or anything, but I'm generally interested in knowing why things work the way they work.
Right? Very curious.
Yes, correct, exactly. I think you stole my next point, which was to have a sense of curiosity. Right? I think that's very, very critical for somebody, and I encourage people to think about, and I believe that we all have a very strong analytical brain. All of us do, right? We have forgotten how to apply it in a conscious way. Okay, and I can give you one example. Let's say you are going to your college the very first day, right? You would have taken some route from your house to the college. Second or third day, you will try another route. Third, fifth day, you will try another route. And very soon, you will settle down on one particular route that you will take every day, no matter what.
Yes.
Right? To the extent that you can potentially or pretty much close your eyes and drive on that road, and you will still reach the college. You would know where the potholes are. You will know where the road humps are, which building, which store, which gate, etc., etc. You will know everything by heart. Now, if you look at why does that happen? It happens because all of us unknowingly are gathering the information around us, right? So from your first day in the college, you started to gather the data. When you're driving, you're looking at the road and whatever else. And then unknowingly, you're also analyzing the data. Once you analyze the data, you came into the result saying, okay, this route makes best sense. It is a shorter time, less potholes, whatever may the reason be. But you have already gone through those 3 sets of those 3 stages of gathering the data, doing the analysis, and acting on it. Right? So that is exactly the same thing that you ask any business person that they do. They gather the data, they analyze the data,
and then they work on
and they act on it. Right? So what younger people should do is to look at or make that analytical part of the brain come to the forefront. Make it a conscious effort. So that's, I think, is probably one of the things that the curiosity is very, very important, gathering of data. And I think that defines everything. Gathering of data could be, when I say data, it is gathering of information essentially, right? It could be political, it could be economical, it could be social, it could be anything. That is one. The second one, I think, stay humble, right? So no matter what people tell you, you're good, you're great, you're best, etc., etc., I think it's very, very important that the leaders should be able to stay grounded. Always consider that what you have is more privileged than what many other people do not have. Right? So I think that's a second ingredient where it becomes very, very humbling. It should be humbling. So we can't be have a chip on our shoulder and walking around. So.
Yes. Wonderful, sir. What are the problems that your company is solving, sir?
Okay, EqualizeRCM. RCM stands for Revenue Cycle Management, and EqualizeRCM means that we are trying to equalize the revenue cycle of hospitals. Okay, and what exactly we do is to help hospitals, urgent care centers, individual doctors, etc. And we are very, very focused on the United States as a market. Okay, so we don't do any business in any other part of the world, including India. So we are hyper focused on our clients to be only in the United States. If I were to explain what exactly we do, is there are hospitals, and these are essentially called care providers. Right? So it could be hospitals, it could be clinics, it could be urgent care centers, it could be independent clinics of doctors, etc., or laboratories, for example, medical labs, diagnostic labs, etc. They are the care providers. All of them have ties up with insurance companies. When a patient walks into one of these care provider hospitals or care provider centers, they present their insurance card, and the insurance processes this claim and gives the money to the care provider. Now, in that entire process, there could be many missteps that could happen. It could be as simple as, let's say, so primarily the missteps happen because the insurance is not giving all of the money that the hospital has billed to the insurance company. And the simplest reason may be the patient has not renewed their medical insurance. Right? So the insurance company says this individual is not eligible for this particular facility, either because they have not renewed, or if they have renewed, this particular ailment is not covered under their insurance policy, etc. Those are the simplest ones. But most of the time, what happens is it is a mismatch of some other way of codifying different aspects of the entire medical billing system. So what we and our teams here do is to resolve those conflicts between the hospitals or their care providers and the insurance, so that we can increase the revenue of these care providers that has to come from the insurance companies. So today, and that's a large business in the US, because almost everybody has an insurance, health insurance. And when they walk into a care provider center and they have to, when they present their insurance, this whole cycle kicks in. Right? And there are lots of other auxiliary services that our clients make use of. Things like there is every diagnosis, for example, has a code associated with it, and every treatment has a code associated with it. And a coding of the ailment, or the diagnosis and the treatment, they all have to match together. Right? So if it doesn't match, then there is a problem. The insurance company says, well, your diagnosis said that the patient had ailment in the right knee, and your treatment is for the left knee, for example. Right? So they might deny the claim. So we try to resolve all those things, and then we help our hospital clients or our care providers to increase their revenue. That's why it is called revenue cycle management. Right? So we have 1,000 people here in Mysore. We are a 17-year-old company working out of Mysore, and we recently, about a year ago, opened another office in Coimbatore, which is about 250 people.
Wow, that's
so wonderful. And we are growing, so that's a good news. So,
wonderful, sir. What are the real life services where your company's services are being used?
See, healthcare business is highly cost conscious. Okay, so it's very difficult for hospitals and the doctors and the clinics to survive if they're not getting paid. Right? And particularly in the United States, the healthcare is a very, very expensive proposition overall. And therefore, and because of all of the facilities that are provided and all of the research that goes into making a healthcare affordable or actually advanced, there's lots of money that gets poured into it, so they have to be able to recover that money. I think overall what we do is definitely helping the economy and definitely the individuals when they actually go into a healthcare facility and ask for some treatment or some service from them.
Okay, sir. What do you think, according to you, is the future trend of this industry, sir? Do you think things like COVID will impact yours, obviously since it's healthcare? So what do you think the future trend is now?
I think it will keep growing, because as just not in the United States. Well, actually, the people think that United States healthcare is universal, but it actually is not. It is not spread to many of the areas in the United States, and maybe in the future, an opportunity exists for us to go into other countries as well. Beyond the shores of the United States, particularly the Western countries, and even places like India, where there is a constant how do I say, the revenue management that needs to happen between the care providers and the insurance. I think as the care industry or healthcare industry gets bigger and better, and it has more people coming under its umbrella, I think the future is very, very bright.
The sky is the limit, sir.
Sky is the limit. Just imagine there are 6 billion people, and not everybody has the healthcare that they deserve, right? And if we were to we meaning as humanity, if we were to cover all the 6 billion people, you can imagine the scope that exists. So,
could you share a few exciting developments or initiatives that your company is currently working on?
So we are working on multiple initiatives, and one of the things obviously we touched upon is the growth. So we are expecting very strong and robust growth over the next 2 to 3 years.
Okay.
And we hope that we would be able to add that growth here in Mysore, but we are also looking at other locations, Coimbatore, as I mentioned, being one of the other ones. Our biggest challenge to do that is the availability of skill sets, right? So in Mysore, this is definitely very difficult. So therefore, we are partnering with the Karnataka Digital Economy Mission, KDEM for short, to identify the people who can actually give us trained manpower. Right? So that is one initiative that we have. And internally within the company, there are a number of initiatives that we have that we are going through. One is streamlining the processes, the skills that we have, and deployment of tools and technology to make our operations a lot more efficient. Our service delivery to our clients will be very, very efficient. So obviously, when we build up the efficiency, our cost structure goes down. If our cost structure goes down, we are able to hire better people and more experienced people, and also pass on some of the savings from that initiative to our clients. So the clients can also become competitive in their own, environment. So what I call, I call it as PPT, people, process, and technology.
Wow.
So the congruence of those three is what we are working on right now.
That's actually very wonderful. That's very nice, actually. It's interesting and it's unique. A lot of people don't hear about this, so I'm glad I got to talk to you about that, sir. What general skills do you look for in a potential employee, sir?
So there are two types of skills, and that is we are actually in the process of redefining what skill sets we need. One generic skills we need is basic graduation. So that is something that we do not compromise on. Beyond that, now we are beginning to look at people. So when I say generic, basic graduation could be BA, BSc, BCom, those kind of things. But we are now expanding to see if people coming with, let's say, nursing background, nursing educational qualification, physiotherapy, or even pharmacy background, they could potentially be a great value add to our company, because they come with certain medical background, right? So it becomes very easy for them to pick up the terminologies and be able to talk to the clients and be able to talk to the insurance companies and so on and so forth. So that is something that we had not done in the past, but we are looking at how do we get them interested in coming and making a career in the healthcare industry of our kind. We are essentially what we call KPO, knowledge processing outsourced provider. It's not a BPO. We don't have scripting and call center, etc. But there is a lots of knowledge or basic background that is required in of these healthcare terminologies and so on. And then, of course, there are other aspects of. We also have some of our products that we build and that we monetize through our clients, and we do look for some software engineers, but it's not a large requirement. Our large requirement is on the the undergrad positions. So in addition to the basic educational qualification, there are certain attributes that we look for in the candidates who walk into the door. And I think this is something that is critical for every person who is looking for a job to be aware of. So some of those, so educational qualification is just the basic launch pad that is given to you to move forward in your life. But what you do with it is left to you. Right? So there are some other ingredients that are required, and just not our company. I think it is true for most other companies as well, probably all of the companies. One is to have the right attitude to succeed. Right? So we talked about curiosity. It's a sense of curiosity. In fact, I call it as intellectual sense of curiosity. It's just not curiosity, but just to go a little deeper and figure out why some things are working, and etc., etc. So the attitude is very, very important. Aptitude can be built over a period of time, and so can attitude. And the way I differentiate the two, Disha, is, let's say you take a competitive exam for the very first time, and let's say out of 1,000 points of score, first time you may get, let's say, 700. You take the same exam after 6 months, you'll probably get 800. You take next time, you'll get 850 and 900, and then we'll probably stop at about 900. Now, between the first time and the third time, does it mean that you have become more intelligent? You have not. No. Right? Your intelligence still has remained the same. Right? That means your aptitude has not changed, but your attitude has changed. Your attitude of learning more, your attitude of figuring out how do I answer questions, how do I answer questions quickly, your attitude of finding different ways to solve the problem has changed. And that change has happened because of repetitive studies and the exams, mock exams, etc. you might take. That's why you have improved, right? So it is very important, therefore, that people look at the attitude, and we definitely do, look at the attitudes of the person in terms of their willingness to learn. Are they willing to put in that extra effort to learn, right? So in the process, how do we determine that? There are many different ways to determine. Obviously, personal interview is one of them, but it becomes very subjective. So we deploy many different tools when a candidate walks in to determine a variety of skill sets. And one of them obviously is what we do, psychometric test, where we can find out the attitude of the person. And the other one that is very, very important is the communication skill. Right? Yeah. And to be able to tell a story, what I was telling you earlier, right? They have to be able to express. You don't have to give a long story for a short question, unlike what I do, but you have to be able to communicate effectively. That's very important, right? So I think attitude is very important, communication skill is very important, and as I said, educational qualification just gives you that initial launch pad. After that, it is left to you. And a good attitude and a good communication skill
will take you further.
Will take you much further down.
Wonderful, sir. What or who was your biggest motivation, sir?
I think it's a number of people. So it's not just one individual. And again, I think, I believe that different stages of your life and different stages of your career, there are different people who play a very, very pivotal role in motivating you to go to the next level. So I've been very, very fortunate to have some great mentors in my life, and some of them I'm still in touch with. But I think starting off, the biggest motivation obviously for all of us is our parents. Right? So that's where we start, and they are the ones, for us, all of us, they are the king and queens of everything that we want to do. I think they are the biggest motivators. But as I said, as we go along, there have been different people. But there are 2 or 3 very, very specific, I wouldn't say motivators, but influencers in my life. Right? So one set of was 2 of my very, very close friends from college. Okay, and they were, I think, huge influencers in my early days while studying in college. One of the reasons I think is because both of them were from much bigger cities. They came from Mumbai, right? So their exposure to life was much more than I had. So just watching them and learning from them, and then they coaching me on variety of different things about what is possible and what are the opportunities that exist, I think was huge. I think that's a great example for somebody to say that you don't have to necessarily learn only from your seniors. So there are people who are your peers, your friends, and but you just have to make sure that you find the right friends, right? So that you can learn from.
Key.
Yeah, that's absolutely is the key, right? So you have to make sure that you associate yourself with people from whom you can learn, right? So, and if you can do that, I think and if they can have a positive impact and a positive influence on you, I think your career is made. And then during my career, I've had two people who are very, very influential in my ability to think differently, right? And think differently in the sense looking at a problem in a holistic fashion as opposed to just a point solution. I think they transformed my thought process. That is again a great example to say that there is never an end to learning. There is no age barrier to learning. If you are willing to keep learning, there are plenty of areas that you can learn. And I remember now this point, I remember a quote from Mark Twain. And Mark Twain was a famous philosopher in the United States, and he once said, our mind is like an umbrella. It works only when it is open. Right? So, and that is something, everybody has to remember.
That is true. What are your personal goals, sir?
I think I reached a career point or a point in my career, Disha. Personal goals again can be divided into multiple things, right? At my age, one is obviously the career goals. The second one is social goals. The third one is the family goals, right? So there are, each one of them I have my own goals. For example, right now, my second son is planning to go abroad for his undergrad. So now my goal is to make sure that he fulfills his dream of going abroad and do whatever he wants to do. Give him the launch pad to be successful. Right? And of course, if I started from here and I've reached, let's say, this point, he should be starting from here. He shouldn't be starting from here, right? So now it should be a bigger launch pad for him. And of course, he has to make use of that launch pad by himself. I can't go handhold him all the time, right? And social goals, now again, having reached this point in my life and career, I believe that it is very important for all of us to give back to the society. And I have certain goals that I very actively pursue in working with the local communities to help them, help the underprivileged kids and underprivileged families to come up in their life. And the third one is, of course, as I said, the career. And I believe, again, I would like to contribute to people who are trying to make a difference based on from my experience. Right, so from the business angle. So it is not that I want to now, let's say, want to be a chairman of some other company. That's not the goal. The goal is to how can I encourage and share my experiences with younger entrepreneurs, younger businessmen and women, and hopefully help them to be better leaders.
That's a very nice personal goal, sir.
Yes.
How do you stay motivated every day, sir? What keeps you going? What drives you?
It's a very interesting question, Disha. So obviously there are different people will have different motivation for them to work, right? So some people may have, for example, recognition. Yes, let's say politicians, for example, they want to win elections, and some people may have financial goals that motivates them, etc. For me, all along my career, my biggest motivation has been, what can I do not to let people around me let them down? Okay, so that's why it keeps pushing me all the time, because whether it's my seniors, whether it's my peers, whether it's my juniors, they're all depending on me to deliver something. Right? And I feel that if I fail in my ability or my delivery, then I'm letting them down, because they are the people who are trusting me to do something.
They believe in you.
They believe in me, and I'm in not just necessarily I have to be in a senior role to make a difference. Even let's say when I was a very young software engineer, my team lead is depending on me to deliver a piece of code, for example, right? And I've always made sure, or at least tried to make sure, that I don't make him feel that, okay, why the hell did I give this job to Bhaskar?
Oh.
Right? So that for me, I think, is the biggest motivator to make sure that I'm not letting down the people who believe in me.
Wonderful. What, according to you, is the future trend in jobs, sir? And how can we as students prepare for them?
There are a lot more opportunities for students today than it existed even, let's say, 10 or 15 years ago. Right? And obviously, the internet and and all of the related technologies have changed or have changed the entire business ecosystem and the environment, and has provided great amounts of opportunities for people to succeed. And so therefore, I believe that as the world gets connected more and more, there will be more and more opportunities for people. And as I alluded to in the beginning, Disha, people have to be ready to take on those opportunities. They have to be ready to identify when the opportunity comes along their way and take advantage of those. So the only way they can do it is to be aware of what is happening in the business world and be ready with whatever skills. Now, not everybody has to be learning everything else. Everybody has their own area which they are very, very strong in. I think people, every student particularly, has to recognize what their strengths are and what are the areas of development, and work on the strengths, or make your strength your friend, and make the areas of improvement as something that you can take along and you continue to work on it. It is highly unlikely that an area of improvement will become your strength at one particular time in your career. It is unlikely. It may happen, but it is unlikely. So it is best to work on your strength. For example, if I have great people skill, right? So that means I could be a great salesperson. Right? I have the ability to network with people. I can talk to people, etc., etc. And then if I'm not good with, let's say, programming, and I can put it as an area of improvement, that I don't know how to program, but that is not where my heart is. That's not where my soul is. So I should not be trying to make that to be my strength, because it will never be my strength. Right? So we have to identify what your strengths are and make sure that you make your strength the focal point of your career. Right?
Good advice, sir.
Thank you.
Give 3 tips to students, sir, who want to become successful like you.
So there are plenty of things. So couple of them I've already touched upon. One is constantly learning.
Yes.
Okay, so you can never ever fall back on your learning goals. Okay, learn whatever you can. Read is something that you should do. Newspapers I talked about, but even pick any good reading habit. Even if you're reading it on your phone or on your iPad or whatever it might be, tablet, etc. But read something. It doesn't have to be a physical book, but keep reading something that will stimulate your brain cells. Right? So gather information, and hopefully it will make you learn things about how to think differently. Right? So that is one. The second most thing to me to be a successful is the trust factor.
Okay.
Right? So you have to trust people to deliver for you. If you don't trust, they're not going to trust back. They're not going to give their 100%. Right? Many people and many parts of the world, in fact, or many countries culturally, they start off by distrusting the other person, right? And until they establish that trust, right? But there are advanced countries where they start off with trusting you first till you prove them otherwise. Right? So I think trusting your team, having faith in your team, I think is the most critical factor of anybody to be a good leader. Actually, that doesn't have to be a leader. Even if you're an individual contributor, you have to trust other people so that they can reciprocate and have trust in you. When people trust you, then you tend to give a lot more than what you're capable of. Right? You cannot doubt people constantly. Right? And the third one is enjoy what you're doing. That's, I think, is the greatest tool that somebody can have to be a successful. You have to enjoy whatever you're doing. If you're not enjoying, then you're just going through the motions. You don't have your heart and soul in it. If you don't have your heart and soul in it, you are not thinking ahead, you are not thinking in a global environment and so on and so forth. I just enjoy.
That's again good advice, sir.
Yeah, thank you.
How important do you think networking is in any point of your career, and how can students develop their own networks, sir?
Networking is absolutely important, critical in multiple ways. Okay, so for student, it is very, very critical because it helps them to obviously get a job, even if they're just not a job, even if they're trying to, let's say, start a business, right? So networking becomes important for them to find the right resources, right people who can mentor them, etc. If you are cooped up inside your house or inside your room and not talking to people, you're not going to get the help that you need, because life is too short for all of us to learn everything by ourselves. We have to rely on other people to teach us from their experience, right? So networking is therefore something that will help you not only in collecting the information, but also it helps you to develop your communication. Then let's say you are meeting with, let's say, the Prime Minister of India. You literally have probably half a minute to tell him what you do and impress him so that he gets interested in what you're doing. Right? So how do you communicate what you want to communicate in less than 30 seconds so that it captures his imagination, so that he can, let's say, comes back and says, okay, I'm not now willing to talk to you for half an hour. Right? So networking helps you to build that communication skills. It helps you to build an environment or an ecosystem where you have people that you can count upon, you can rely upon when you actually need any help to be done. And of course, you have to be ready to give it back to the network as well. It is just not just take and not being able to give anything. It has to be give and take. And all of the organizations that everybody is part of, whether it is STI in Mysore or it is CII, etc., etc., you get more out of it when you contribute to it. Right? So you have to be actively involved, and it can be anything. It doesn't have to be a professional organization. It could be anything that is close to your heart. So keep networking. You never know who can make the right connections for you. So there are many ways a student can build their network. One, obviously, is, as I said, they have to get out of their room. They have to go out there and talk to people. Don't be shy about talking to people. They have to. I'm not saying that they have to be flamboyant in their communication skills, but come out of the fear of talking to people. The shyness, not fear, but shyness of talking to people. That will obviously open up doors. The second, I think, is the way to build is starts very early. Obviously your college friends, your school friends is the first circle of your network, right? And then as you graduate or you get into professional life, there are many other networking sites like LinkedIn, for example, right? But LinkedIn is again a virtual connection. It can make virtual connections, but it can't make that physical connections. So you should be, I would encourage students to take part in local organizations, right? So be part of the organization. It could be professional, it could be amateur, hobby organizations, etc. That would be the second part, and slowly build from there, right? So you start participating in, become a member of those organizations, start attending those events that they organize, talk to people who come to present something, right? And then you start to make connections one after the other. Right. So, and it could even be just not professional organization. It could also be social organizations, right? So it could be any social organization that you have local to your neighborhood or your city. So be active. I think that will help you to build that network and the connections to be made. So ultimately, it comes down to not being shy, right? And use LinkedIn. Use LinkedIn. Try to find people who have a similar interest and connect with them, have a conversation with them, even if it is just a virtual conversation. I think all those things starts to build up your networking ability as well as the size of your network. Right? So it goes down to what I said earlier. You have to give back to the network, and what you expect from the network. So once you start giving to the network, then you can expect to take the returns of that investment.
Wonderful. Now we'll move on to the rapid fire questions, sir.
Sure.
Short and quick answers.
Okay.
Let's do this.
Okay.
Okay. What is your favorite food, sir?
Chana bhatura, without a doubt.
Oh, immediately. If you could be a superhero, who would you be, sir?
I would like to be Spider-Man.
Why, sir? Everybody says Superman, Iron Man, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man, because I think I feel Spider-Man is somebody who looks like a common man,
Ah, okay.
right? But he does good, and he does everything behind the screen. Unless
okay.
required, he doesn't come in the front, and whenever he comes in the front to help people, he is in disguised mode. So I think I like that part of being a Spider-Man.
Unique answer, sir. If you could have dinner with a celebrity, who would it be, and what do you like about this celebrity?
Without a doubt, Narendra Modi. So the reasons are plenty. I think he is a man of plenty of energy. I don't know where he derives that energy from. That is one. But more than that, what I like about him the most is he keeps trying something new. Right? It doesn't matter whether it is successful or not, but at least he's making an attempt to do things differently. I think that again, that is something that everybody should be willing to do in their life. So keep trying. Not 100% of your efforts will be paid off, but even if it pays off 60-70%, I think you've done well. That is what I like about him.
Nice. What one book would you recommend to people, sir?
There is again no one book that I would recommend. There are plenty of books that I have read that I really liked. Some of them are business books. Some of them are just for fun. That it's fiction books that novels that I've read. My favorite author is Chetan Bhagat from India. The other one is John Grisham. I like his books, and I like his books because they are highly detail oriented. And on the business side, I like a couple of books. One is Rich Dad Poor Dad, and the other one is Blue Ocean Strategy.
Okay. So, if you could recommend one Chetan Bhagat book, sir, which one would you recommend?
Two States.
Two States.
Yes.
Okay. Nice. What kind of music do you listen to, sir?
I listen to both Hindustani classical as well as Bollywood movies, but Bollywood movies of the old era. So I love Kishore Kumar. I enjoy Kishore Kumar songs, and anything in the Hindustani classical I enjoy.
Wonderful. Now this is the spicy question. If you won a lottery of 1 crore and you had to spend it in one day, how would you spend it, sir?
I would invest in startups that is going to be making a difference in the social entrepreneurship, right? So that is making an impact to, let's say, rural India or to the lives of people, and just not from the commercial point of view, but from the social point of view.
Okay, wonderful. We've reached the end of today's interview. Thank you, sir, for sharing your wisdom with me and interacting with me and reminding me to always keep learning.
Thank you very much, Disha, for having me on your show. I think it's a wonderful segment, and I really enjoy talking with you and answering your questions. I hope it helps the younger students to learn from my experience and implement them. Thank you very much once again.
Thank you, sir. It was an honor to have you.
Thank you.
Thank you for watching.